Hey guys, I'm Justine, and today we're going to be working on a DIY Chevron tabletop for my workspace. Let's get started. Here's an idea of what I use for tools. You can use whatever's in your workshop. I'll include a better list in the description below. For plywood, I just used a 1/2 inch thick piece of scrap cut to a general size of what I was going for. From there, I used my tape measure to find both center lines on the long side and short side of my board. Once I had those center points, I used a straight edge to connect them. This guideline will come in handy when you start to lay your chevron. Once I had an idea of how long I wanted each side of the chevron to be, I used a miter saw to chop down my common boards to size. Once I had a rough cut of each board, I cut each end to a 45-degree angle so that they piece together into a chevron. Don't worry about exact cuts, we're going to trim the ends off at the end. For my design, I wanted my chevron to point both ways into the middle of my table. You can of course have it all pointing in one direction, it's totally up to you. For my first piece, I used my center line as a guide, and I used a speed square to make sure that my 45-degree angle was on point. I used an 18 gauge brad nailer to lay my first piece, and then I did the same thing on the other side. Since I wanted my chevron to point both ways into the middle, I flipped that and did the same thing on the other side. Once you have your first pieces laid, you can kind of just work from there using your T-square to make sure your angles are correct every once in a while. You guys, this is my first YouTube video! Am I doing okay? Alright, back to business. Now that you have most of your chevron laid, use any scrap pieces to fill in the smaller sides of the gaps. Looking pretty good. Once you have your final boards laid, go ahead and flip your piece over and use a circular saw to trim off any loose ends. I had a friend help me flip my tabletop back over so I could add the trim pieces. For the trim, I used select 1x3s to cap the edges of my tabletop. I used sustainable wood putty to fill any holes left by the brad nails. If you can't find a putty knife, one of my favorite tricks is to use an old gift card. Once that was dried, I gave it a quick sand to get ready for staining. I used a weathered oak stain, but you can use whatever you want. Since this was such a large area, I used a brush and a rag to apply the stain. Since this tabletop is just for my workspace, I'll be putting it on 2 sawhorses from IKEA, but you can use it for whatever you want, even if it's just on top of an old table. Alright guys, that's it. Thanks for watching and have fun out there! Is that recording? Yeah. Cool!